Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're viewing from. Welcome back. And your eyes aren't deceiving you. We went from there to here. Tom and Ryan still breaking it down for you, baby. And this time, we're bringing you Obey and SK.
Now, this is, again, a test for Obey. I feel like I just said this because I did, because they just played last week. But Obey Alliance has struggled so far here in Season 5. This is the matchups that they need to be winning if they want to crawl their way back towards the top. But they had a little bit of trouble with SK, 72 minutes worth of trouble, if I remember correctly, against this squad. You and I, again, not there. If it's another 72-minute game, we are in the clear.
Really excited for this one, not only because we might dodge that 72-minute, but because it's a chance for SK to really bounce back. If they can bottle what they did in that original game to find the win, because this is a team that has struggled. They've identified one of their issues. They have benched Badger for a couple of weeks now, working with WhoDaBest, which is CaptainTwig, if you're familiar with the European ranked scene. So this guy has been recognized by pros. This is his first sort of foyer into the Pro League sort of competition, and when you're this type of rookie, more is absolutely all you want. You want to sit here and play as many games as possible. Coming in here, we should see a better WhoDaBest than last time.
I completely agree. It just takes time to get acclimated to the pro scene, and especially when you're going up against such juggernauts like Obey Alliance and Energy and Rival and Dignitas, like week in and week out. It's gonna be an adjustment period for sure.
There was an adjustment period for Obey initially, still continuing, but Obey Alliance, they're good right now. Obey Alliance are the team on the other side of the support train, leaving Emilzy behind and picking up iRaffer. I personally thought this team was going to surge forward. It took a while. They certainly were at number one between the two of them, but now we're seeing everything sort of slowly come together, and that's scary. Obey Alliance with the likes of Raffer and everybody on the same page, I don't know the ceiling for these guys.
And Obey Alliance still working towards that ceiling just because of the switch, as you were talking about there. It just takes a little bit of time. And a team that's always, their identity has been so team fight driven. I talked about it a little bit last week. I kind of want to see them rotate back and just worry about this guy, PrettyPriMe. Just play the feed the Prime game and let him be your hard carry. Who cares about team fights if Prime just gets really, really big? Mid laners are really impactful right now in the meta. I just want to see Obey's focus be on this guy.
I mean, he's been a fantastic force for this team since all the way back to the Achilles days. PrettyPriMe and Ataraxia sticking together to create Obey, formerly last year Hungry for More, right? Really slow start, so they're no strangers to beginning a season in a questionable form. We saw them, actually struggle. The worst team in their league when they first came through, and eventually wound up being the Titans that are Obey, no pun intended, that we see today. Now, if you look at the same thing when you have the new support player, Raffer, it really just looks similar to me.
And Raffer can be one of the best players in the world. He's done it many times. He's won 2 world championships, for God's sakes. It's not the talent that's a problem. It's just the way that they're thinking about the game, thinking about the meta. It's a little bit different than the other teams. It hasn't worked out thus far. Maybe if they just keep beating their head against the wall, they'll break through and find out that what they were playing was best all along. But there's probably some merit to saying, okay, we yield. You guys got it right. Let's just try and do what you do, but better.
And identifying your issues is certainly the first step of many to becoming a good team. SK has identified theirs as separating themselves from their old support and bringing together a new one, but I think it's going to be a little bit more time before we see SK at the top. SK Gaming's a team in a transitional period right now. They just got rid of their support. They introduced a new one. I don't know if this guy's the permanent solution, but they need a permanent solution. SK Gaming, they haven't won. They don't look like they're going to win anytime soon. Every opportunity for these guys is a learning experience. Hit the books and learn.
And if SK is going to storm back and be one of those top teams in Europe, for my mind, it's got to be Lawbster who's going to lead the way. Funballer has looked pretty good during his time here in Season 5. It started to look better during that Obey set, but in particular, Lawbster's the guy for me that if SK is going to bounce back, it's got to be centered around him.
I mean, he's been, again, I talked about it with PrettyPriMe. I'm going to say the same thing about Lawbster. This guy, again, sticking with his hunter. There seems to be a trend there. But again, sticking with his longtime hunter, Funball, Lawbster has has repeatedly been an impactful player in the league. Now, watching his performance this year, a couple of questions. Is he still that dominant? But, I mean, when you see the ending, when you see some of these plays, I mean, he absolutely can be. I think Lawbster was a big part of what allowed Obey Alliance to win against, or excuse me, what allowed SK to win against Obey Alliance. And if they want to make that a trend, they've got to look towards the mid lane.
Completely agree with you. And things like this Giannis selection that he played so well in that very, very long game is what I want to see more of from him. He's got the potential to make those game-changing plays, and
look at that.
It's you got that potential. You just got to actually be able to execute off of it.
I love that play right there. He reads the fact, and this is what makes Lawbster so Lawbster, is the fact that he reads the fact that his player is going to get jumped on by a dodgy, deploys the laser beam before the dodgy even does it. I mean, he was thinking ahead of where the jungler was thinking at that point in time. That's what makes Lawbster Lawbster, and hopefully SK will be able to bottle that and find a victory. Nuwa banned out by SK and Obey. They remember that game.
Straight to Giannis, and I'm glad that they remembered and that that's the ban to go for, because I completely agree with them. That has got to be the priority, is to make sure that SK don't win, because if they do, it's because they were able to bring in the Dancing Lobsters.
Kamazot's going to be banned out here as well from Obey. Great reference.
Thank you.
Shoutouts to Amanda Bynes. But Achilles is going to be on the top here for SK Gaming, taking the new god out.
Yeah, and we saw Variety play it earlier on today in the solo lane and played it pretty well, honestly, as well. But I wonder if this is going to be in the jungle or in solo, or maybe even support. We've seen some crazy support stuff so far here in Season 5, and I feel like SK is the team to do it because they've been consistently playing Osiris support for some reason, even though it continues to not work. So maybe you just give WhoDaBest a different warrior and tell him to shut up and take it.
Well, we'll see if that's the case. Nemesis and Soul, a little bit more traditional across the way on Obey, likely for Twig and Prime. We'll see where everything lands up. But we do get the Batz and the Chronos for SK Gaming. Interesting stuff here. I want to see Lawbster on the Chronos. I know this is probably going to wind up in the hands of Funball, but Lawbster's Chronos is surprisingly very strong.
Could be, but I do think it's going to be for Funball. Again, we were just talking about on the cast between Energy and Dignitas. The Hunter role is kind of now the late game star, and Chronos is the late game star, so you don't want to put him in a spot where that doesn't really work together too well like it would in the mid lane.
Sobek, very powerful in our first set. That'll be selected for Obey. Maniac used to be their solo lane, so we'll see how this one really works out. Maybe piloted by Xaliea, maybe in the hands of the support. Who knows just yet. Discordia, banned out by Obey, as well as the Ra. Really looking at Lawbster here. 3 out of 4 of the bans focused on him.
And if you count SK's own bans, that means that there's another 2 mages out off the table to make sure that Lawbster is going pretty deep into that god pool. My brain always defaults to the Poseidon for Lawbster, but I don't know that I love it into what Obey has so far. Soul doesn't really care about Kraken. She gets a slow immunity on the Disapparate. It's just a little tough to lock her down, even with the Poseidon Whirlpool.
Lawbster made a name for himself on Agni.
Yeah,
but it will be the Poseidon, the other side of that coin. It's funny. I think Agni and Poseidon and Ra, I guess, are the 2 gods that really come to mind. Fire and water.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But more Poseidon because lobsters live in the water, and that's where
Ganesha will be the supportive choice for SK Gaming
it's like
here.
The animal.
He's got a good silence.
Yeah, he does. Another animal, by the way.
Yeah, everybody's going bananas here as Obey selects Isis for the mid lane, so Soul will be the hunter of choice.
Batz likes bananas. Nice one, dude.
Thanks, man. We're all hanging out here in the menagerie.
Here we are. It's us.
Doing the things. SK Gaming versus Obey. Love the draft that SK have here. We'll see if Obey can bang heads against that Chronos. And on the call, it's Toli and the Gambler.
Yeah, thanks so much, Goof Troop on the desk. I'm excited to see the rest of your performance here today. Yeah, me and Tolly will be going through this one, breaking it down for you. Very interesting enough to see what sort of mages were banned out there. A lot of mages banned out. So we get an Isis Poseidon throwback mid lane.
Oh my goodness, it's just going back to yesteryear here. Lawbster playing, it's just going to see the old school tradition of the way he brought it back in like 2013, 2014.
Sure, definitely an exciting one. Ganesha also locked in. Surprisingly enough, Ganesha, 87% win ratio. But for you guys, who do you think is going to win this game? Vote in Mixer Chat right now to work it out. I'm kind of favoring Obey with this draft. You reckon it's a Ganesh?
It's the Ganesh.
87%
it's
win ratio. It's
pretty popular.
I mean, it's only been played 8 games in the Pro League so far, but that's a high win rate. The highest.
It's definitely worth investing time to look more in-depth about that statistic. Which team picked the Ganesh, about who is going to be able to succeed more with it than others. Because if it's being played by the same team over and over again, then that's a a very favored pick.
Well, if you think about it, SK Gaming not in the standings in terms of how many wins they end up getting just lately. So WhoDaBest, who once again is subbing in, not the permanent replacement. I spoke to Lawbster a little bit earlier this week, and he was saying they are still looking to sign some contracts and dot some I's and cross some T's about who their new support player will be. But for now, it's WhoDaBest again this week, playing the Ganesh. So we'll see how he does.
Up against Obey Alliance, and last week they had quite the slobber knocker there.
It was.
In that set. A
That
very
Giannis, though.
long,
No, I don't remember that, Tolly.
long
No,
game.
it wasn't that long. I've seen worse.
Long.
We were nearly, Tolly. We nearly had the longest game and the shortest game in
That's
history
true.
casted together. You
That
know
is true. Yeah, we casted, what was it? The
So close.
Envy versus Soar?
Yeah, it was a great set, that one.
Oh, yeah. 2
Quality.
minutes in, MVP Dust.
MVP Dust. Not
First
often
blood.
that gets said. But it was said, and that's exactly how it was. Beginning of this game, Blink for the support and jungler. iRaffer going to start off with the Blink on Geb, no real surprise there. Really invested a lot in this Geb this year. Totally has iRaffer. Reason for it, what do you think? Just comfort?
Safety. It's what it's all about. Ataraxia needs the protection in the backline, as does PrettyPriMe. The foundation of the team really relies on the former Titan members. And, you know, building it from the ground up, this roster, I think that it's not a bad idea to go for such a defensive support as Geb.
Definitely an interesting situation, this one. No hunters in this game whatsoever, so mainly focused on magical damage this game. Some of the only physical really coming is the junglers and that Achilles in the solo lane.
Achilles not very successful thus far in the SPL.
He's
The
only played one game, Totally.
I mean, still not successful.
That's true.
0-1. Also saw some action in the Smite Minor League. Not successful there either.
Okay.
A lot of downfall, but I believe in the minor league it was played both times in the jungle, not winning either of those games. So, 4th time's a charm.
Well, let's see how the solo lane works out for him today. Ducky going to be starting things off with the Warrior's Blessing straight to boots, and 85% of you at home believe Obey will take game 1. By the picks and the bans, I can see an argument for both.
I like the late game teamfight potential from Obey Alliance. It's more defensive minded. The longer the team fight lasts, the way better it's going to be for Obey Alliance. Whereas SK Gaming, after Fear No Evil, and then after that big old Kraken, like, they're relying on the consistent damage coming out of Funballer. Because Ducky's going to be blown up pretty easily, I feel like.
Yeah, talking about the mid laners a little bit more as well. Poseidon versus the Isis. Lawbster, it's been mentioned, it was one of his signature gods of years gone by of the Poseidon. Although PrettyPriMe, he's been on the Vulcan and the Isis many, many times before.
Did you see Faeles just miss that monkey bounce in between those 3 archers?
I didn't know.
Okay.
That's a lost experience, that totally, isn't
True.
it? Lost
No,
experience.
I think that he wanted
His
to
game's
kind of
over.
go through. But anyway, needless to say, 2 minutes into the game, I think that both of these teams still kind of feeling each other out, not wanting to force anything too much. But it doesn't surprise me that Ataraxia on the Soul is just bullying this lane, sitting under this tower
he
line,
will early.
really abusing that heat meter.
Early on, though, if you think about it, Ganesh and Chronos going to take a little bit of ramp to get the clear online, whereas Stellar Burst a little bit better at clearing the wave.
And just the passive alone from Soul, getting extra
Yeah.
attack speed and the magical power will heavily outweigh the Chronos before he even gets the accelerate or even the items to be able to benefit from that steroid.
The patch is still not out just yet, so we'll see how Sol survives next week with a couple of changes to her passive. Going to weaken that down a little bit. We'll find that out in the next week of the SPL. But it's all about this week. And Agro on the desk was talking about Lawbster's play so far this season. Totally been struggling a little bit, and a lot of the backbone of this team, they're going to have to look towards Lawbster. Him and Faeles, actually 3rd and 4th lowest in the region in terms of deaths, as in highest, I should say.
Oh, okay.
They've died the most, 3rd and 4th most, have Faeles and Lawbster. And that's something you really can't have happen in the mid and jungle roles.
Well, usually the most action comes between your jungle and
It's
mid,
true.
so that leads me to believe that the early game action is just not favoring it out SK, where they're just struggling and one step behind, and as a result, without the momentum behind Faeles and Lawbster, they're going to ultimately fall.
Yeah.
So Bay Alliance, though, not really pressuring out SK Gaming too much. They did invade this back left camps, but from here on out, they're just got a comfortable 500 goal lead.
Well, Twig can be in a bit of a tricky position here. I don't think you noticed Faeles. He does now. Still going to duke it out, but around the corner comes WhoDaBest, looking to collapse. Monkey Toss goes out, forces a reset, but they're going to reset again at SK Gaming when Prime shows up. Overhand Smash will not steal it away. Obey Alliance get in and take the red.
SK Gaming are just actually helping Obey Alliance clear their own red buff. Unfortunately, could not coordinate their own abilities together at the same time. The slice and dice from CaptainTwig was used on the wave and to poke out Faeles, but as he did that, he actually stepped backwards away from the red buff to reset it while looking for the poke at the end of the day, and that's something that Obey Alliance are doing a good job thus far, looking for the poking opportunities and then disengaging.
Now, I know I mentioned Lawbster and Faeles having a troublesome time in terms of surviving in these games with a lot of deaths, but above them, in terms of most deaths, is CaptainTwig. Would you believe? So both teams really having some issues with surviving in these games. Twig, second, 3.91 deaths a game, nearly 4 deaths a game.
So that actually does not surprise me because of how aggressive he is. Sometimes a little bit too aggressive. I remember the couple of games already in Season 5 where he was looking for numerous speed buff invades, back camp invades by himself. And whenever you're straying alone in the jungle in Season 5, you're just asking for a bad time.
Well, Warlock Sash is being worked on here by SK Gaming, one for their Hunter or Chronos, and Lawbster in the mid lane, more than likely going the same sort of route. Looks like PrettyPriMe might be investing into the Book of Thoth. We'll see if he goes for that or the Soul Reaver. We've seen a couple of differences in terms of builds of whether it's Soul Reaver or Book of Thoth in these games. Prime has the option of either.
I think it would be better off for him to go Book of Thoth. The extra mana that you get from that item allows the Isis to spam more of her utility spells between the stuns, the silences, and then simply even once you get Chronos Pendant with it, just to get off more Circle of Protections to help win team fights.
Seem to be setting up for quite a slow game, at least Obey Alliance are, Anatoly, especially with Gauntlet Thebes being first item for iRaffer. No boots for the Rock just yet. The Rock is just going to roll around to his heart's consent for that mobility, I guess, but investing in the Gauntlet. And this is the awkward thing when you're stuck in the Gauntlet. You want to try and stay alive.
Oh my goodness.
Lawbster, though, he won't.
He's just gone. Absolutely deleted off the face of the battleground with those two ultimates rather, between the Nemesis ultimate amplifies the damage of everything else, and WhoDaBest caught between a rock and a hard place.
And the hard place was CaptainTwig, who gets a kill for himself. Prime gets one, and that was just on the rotation from Lawbster. He was trying to rotate between tier 1 and tier 2 into his own jungle, and the trap was set that gets Obey off to a fantastic, cracking start. 2k gold lead at only 6 minutes in.
And this is why Nemesis is so favored in SPL. It's just the amplification of damage. Once you pop that ability here, it was used onto Lawbster, and without a lot of his protection stripped away, that circle of protection starts hitting even harder.
Xaliea up against Ducky here in the solo lane. Definitely an interesting one to watch with the Achilles now coming into the meta. How do you expect that lane to go? Because obviously it's early days for all the lane matchups with an Achilles.
It depends on once Xaliea gets some of his physical defense items online. Once that breastplate is available, then he should be stabilizing here. But currently, Ducky can be super aggressive, trying to get Xaliea under that execute threshold. At level 8, the way the passive of Achilles works is it's 10 base physical power plus 2 a level. So you're looking at 26 additional passive power for this Achilles alongside the movement speed. But Xalia's doing a good job of at least disrupting the combination. Not resetting the third ability means that Ducky can't look for that continuous poke. Can we look at what Ducky's actually maxing out?
That's true. What is Ducky actually going for in terms of abilities? Because that was going to be an interesting one.
Maxing out the third ability does more single target damage, whereas the first ability is easier time to clear kind of deal. But if you're looking for poke, then you want to max out that third ability. It's 450 base damage at max rank, and you're getting 100% scaling, whereas the other ability is significantly less.
I mean, even if we can't see it, I mean, one thing we can know, Tolly, is he's been using his one consistently during these engagements anyway to clear the wave, so I guess that's what he's been going for the most part here. Funballer going to hit level 7. Warlock Sash already stacking up for now.
And the race here between these two mid-mages also, the Book of Thoth versus the Warlock Staff. Funballer going for the same idea here because he needs that little buffer to get that rewind off, whether it's going to be protections or more importantly that health. He is maxing out that third ability, so every time Ducky is going to dash in, Xaliea is going to be looking to disrupt it. There's this very small window where you can get off the 3 again, so by using the pluck, by using the tail whip, before you get hit by it, you can potentially disrupt the reset.
Oh, left-hand side, bit of aggression as the rewind used by Funballer. Actually, Ataraxia a little bit far forward. Shield already down, but luckily Disapparate gets him back to safety in the nick of time. Nice bit of aggression, though, from the duo lanes.
Great disengage from Ataraxia and from Funballer as well, trading ultis for ultis. as the supports here. 2 defensive supports, and then 2 very hyper-aggressive mage ADCs. A 2-level lead, though, for Ataraxia.
Yeah, big important factor there, especially delaying Chronos as long as possible. So with this, you know, ducking the solo lane on this dash, when he dashes the first time with his third ability, if he doesn't throw out the spear and it doesn't connect, does it cancel? You can't dash again, correct?
That's right. If you have to hit an enemy god to get the reset.
Is it like Athena Reach, though? Like if he gets knocked up, does that get cancelled then? It means you can't dash again?
I'm pretty sure it still can be fired again after you get tail whip, but there's still like an X amount of seconds of a duration where you have time to find the reset.
It's called combat dodge for you kids at home. I know what it's called, but it's just going to get called dodge or the third ability, as everyone generally will call it. We'll see how this works as time goes on. But it's a 12-second cooldown with 50% scaling as well, interestingly enough. So, guess it's okay for Clear.
Pretty good if you can find the reset. Yeah. If you don't find the reset, then the one is always going to be better. And that's why Xaliea is trying to be very annoying here, making sure that Ducky is not going to get the reset whenever possible. Even being able to like pluck away from Achilles if you see him dash in.
Ooh, Achilles giving a bit of pressure here. Twig was rotating around, and I don't think Ducky recognized it. He was going to pick up his blue buff, and now he's going to meet CaptainTwig too. Immediately ults away defensively. I love that call from him there. Just ult with the Fatal Strike back to the safety of his tier 2. Don't mess around.
That's true. Without his dash up, then that was the only safety. He was also a little bit afraid of getting just straight out bursted here between the Divine Judgment and everything else.
Oh, jungler's trading, and Twig did not bite off more than he could chew, or did he? Double dashes back out to safety. One hit, monkey toss, blink, overhand smash from Faeles.
My goodness there, but also going to get tossed around and juggled in the mid lane is WhoDaBest, getting Kraken in the face there. Didn't even matter. iRaffer did not care because circular protection was right underneath of him.
It was a beautiful Kraken from Lawbster, but a great response from PrettyPriMe. The circular protection just reduces the amount of damage that's going to get done. So Geb wasn't really in much trouble there. Obey now 3-1 in this game, about 3,000 gold. Faeles, though, is fighting back into this.
So a very small little minute detail of why CaptainTwig did not succeed in that 1v1 against Faeles is he dashed too early during the jump of Faeles that he actually put himself in a position to get landed on, even though Faeles jumped away from CaptainTwig. If he waited half a second and then double dashed in and kept chasing him down, then he wouldn't have gotten the slowed, he wouldn't have gotten extra damage, and that would have been an easy kill, I feel, for CaptainTwig.
So 2 level 12s in the game so far, both on Obey. PrettyPriMe and Ataraxia now have their secondary relics available. And Ataraxia's gone back to base already, got his Warlock staff online and that Aegis to go alongside it. Nice, comfortable position for the Hunter, whereas Funballer, we've seen him a lot in this Chronos before, Tolly. He can make big things happen.
It's very true, but going for a different style here, going for the Mage's Blessing as opposed to the Hunter's Blessing. Now, granted, Time Rift is a very short cooldown. I think it's like 5 seconds in total. But more importantly is those basic attacks, once you evolve it, it's going to be a 15% extra attack speed from Hunter's Blessing evolved. And that's what you're really looking for once you have higher levels on the Chronos, that mid-game power spike once you get another magical power item, where you can really start chunking these towers with that 4th tick of Accelerate.
And I think that's a call here from Funballer. It's either do I go pen or do I go cooldown? Because cooldown means more rotations of abilities and your ultimate being up more.
True. The rewind is also very important to max out, reducing the cooldown per rank. So that's why it doesn't surprise me maybe if he also opts for the Chronos Pendant, but actually picking up that Ancient Sword leads me to believe that he could be picking up a Wingblade.
Blink Faeles on to, sorry, Fatal Evil, I should say, onto CaptainTwig, who's surrounded. Tries to get some extra protections for himself, but caught in enemy territory by 3 members of SK.
You were saying how CaptainTwig has one of the highest deaths in the SPL. It's plays like that that puts him out of position. With them being respawning every minute, it makes it a little tempting to try to get it. It's a lot of gold income, especially as the game progresses, but you got to pick and choose when you invade. If you're going to be that aggressive on the back harpies, don't ward the back harpies, ward the speed. Make sure that you see Faeles coming from a distance and make the necessary adjustments.
Well, it's a nice little play pick off there from SK Gaming. Faeles just using the Fatal Evil one more time, knowing the beads were on cooldown from the last time they skirmished. So a nice little opportunity there. Now, though, CaptainTwig's beads are back and online alongside the blink that he's gone for here. WhoDaBest going very aggressive here onto iRaffer, cancels out his rollout, and now all in on iRaffer, but circle of protection down, as is the Kraken. That didn't do much, if anything, with that circle of protection, Tully. It tickled.
iRaffer's just giggling back to the mid lane as he's already sitting at 80% health after absorbing basically 2 ultimates to the face. Geb Shield and the Circle of Protection from Isis negates so much damage. It's just really obnoxious that SK probably won't be able to find the targets that they need. But once teamfights come around, it's going to be important for Ducky to force the early Geb Shield onto literally anybody, and then have Lawbster focus whoever did not get shielded.
We'll see what happens, because at the moment what we've found out is PrettyPriMe is going to always use that ultimate defensively to make sure those Krakens do absolutely nothing in the engagements. Even though Lawbster's been on point with quite a couple so far, they've not done the damage they want. The damage reduction scales up to 20% at max rank on that Circle of Protection. So takes a lot of the bite out of these abilities.
And also, by using the Circle of Protection under the Kraken, you're using that Kraken damage to build charges on your Circle of Protection. It takes a little bit of time to charge it up, but with such heavy burst from that one ultimate from Lawbster, it's almost done fully charging at that point.
I'm talking about PrettyPrime's Isis a little bit more. He did go for that Soul Reaver, straight into some more penetration here. So he didn't want the Book of Top of the Mana. He was looking for extra burst, I guess, more than anything else from those long-range Spirit Balls of Doom.
Now, the point is, you're trying to find the setup there, and iRaffer can certainly do so between that Blink, Cataclysm, knock-up. So the burst is definitely there, but relying on iRaffer engaging like that means that Xaliea is going to have to be in the backline and peeling.
iRaffer here as well, also gone for the Frenzy, something that we don't see too many times, but it is a viable option. It does mean you want to invest heavily, and it kind of gives a little window. If iRaffer's going to use it the way I think he might, which is pop Frenzy, Blink, Cataclysm to set up his team and buff them as well, it will increase the amount of damage their whole team do, but it is a little bit of a telltale sign.
That's right. That's what I was about to point out. If he uses that belt before blinking in, that means the green light just turned on for everybody to react to that kind of a play. So I'm not really expecting it immediately. It might be kind of the secondary wave. I think Obey Alliance are very contempt about allowing SK Gaming to strike first and then look for the counter engage, because like we mentioned before, their composition just screams counter engage.
Oh, Ducky couldn't get the blue buff, and now Ducky's used his dash and is in an awkward spot. Going to ult on to Xalia's face. Thorns comes into play, but Ducky's falling very low. No rotation here from SK until just a little bit too late. And if Xaliea, I tell you what, if Lawbster would have realized Xaliea was spam toying there, he might have just crackened over that wall.
Probably would have, but not going to be in position to do so. Left side setting up a little bit of a trap was PrettyPriMe, keeping anyone from SK
Blinking Cataclysm on Lawbster in mid, but a great ult from WhoDaBest will try and deny some of that opportunity where the Cataclysm came out from iRaffer.
Not going to be able to find the kill, but will force Lawbster back. Small window for Obey to maybe grab the gold fear. They are positioned to do so. Circle of Protection available. And with Lawbster coming back from base, there's no Kraken to contest.
And no ultimate from Ganesha either. In they go with the Fear No Evil. Obey get the Gold Fury. CaptainTwig running away as Faeles eats a lot of damage there. Has to fall back too. Funballer, the furthest one forward. Now going to get collapsed on by multiple members. The rest of his team have abandoned him. Rewind. Puts him back across the wrong side of the map. And the Spirit Ball at the back of the head will get the beats.
And they juke out the time stop, still trying to run away. He is so fast with that accelerate. Not even the speed buff CaptainTwig Nemesis can find him.
Ganesh was trying to support, and Ganesh is going to have to use a Whirlpool, but the enhance from Ataraxia just too much. Now Lawbster in a bit of a tricky spot. That Spirit Ball connected, and it did. The Silencer followed it up, and the Wing Gust to try and find the kill. PrettyPriMe gets himself on a killing spree.
And Lawbster dying with his ultimate is not a good look. Spirit Ball is not going to connect onto Funballer, but CaptainTwig certainly will with that slice and dice. That was 3 dead members very quickly alongside the Gold Fury, now stacking up more gold with that tier 1 tower.
They're going to get a purple buff on the left too. Meanwhile, Faeles on the right-hand side did respawn, or did fall back to base, I should say, and try to invade, but there's nothing much to invade on the right-hand side as Obey Alliance strip everything on the left, and they're looking at a tier 2 tower.
This is the kind of momentum you need in Season 5 to keep building, to end games quicker. Don't allow it to get to 75
Faeles
minutes.
got caught. Faeles got caught in the jungle too, trying to steal the Harpies from Obey's side. CaptainTwig up against Faeles, and Faeles has to use the Fear No Evil to try and get away, but Twig is still giving chase.
The slice and dice will create the slow, but with WhoDaBest right around the corner, it's going to be that hard disengage. And if there's anyone knows about back harpy invades, it's going to be CaptainTwig. So spotting that from a mile away, just able to defend his own Harpies.
But he did live. That's the main thing for Faeles there. 7-2 are the standings now. Gold lead has stretched. It was 2.5k at around 6 minutes in. It's now 8,000. And I've not even spoke about the experience, Tolly.
It's just a huge uphill climb for Obey Alliance. They definitely learned their lesson the last time that they played against SK Gaming, not wanting to go to the long haul here. Their draft and composition is already prime and destined for the late game, but with this kind of a lead, they could just win out.
And they might actually start turning their attention towards the right-hand side of the map now. Pyromancer, Fire Giant, definitely both available. Pyromancer, just worth a little bit of gold. Like a baby Gold Fury is the way you could really look at it this season.
It's just a little in-betweener, as I like to call it, between the Gold Fury and the Fire Giant, when there's nothing really left to do on the mini-map, when you don't want to invest into the Tier 1, Tier 2 towers. There's plenty of time to do it, and it's not like the Fire Giant or Gold Fury where it's like impossible to solo at a certain level.
Well, Ward Wars have begun, and you can see the dance of the centuries begin. Everyone dropping them and clearing out the old one, and it's all about keeping the vision control as much as possible. There's a lot of angles there, Tony, that I don't think teams are really utilizing yet around perfect positioning of like, I can see everything versus I can see enough without it getting spotted and sentryed away.
It's also because there's multiple entryways behind the Fire Giant with all those little intersections between the solo lane and the Fire Giant pit. Grouping up towards Pyromancer. Obey Alliance feeling very confident that they could do this in a 5v5 encounter, even pulling Ducky in.
And all in on Ducky. Where's your ultimate now? He's got more than just a heal. He's in a lot of trouble. Pyromancer goes down, as does the Fear No Evil and the Ganesh Dharmic Pillars, but the Pyromancer goes the way of Obey, and Obey just weather the storm of SK's investment. Now SK have to turn and run.
They're trying to run away, but the dash is down from WhoDaBest. All it's going to take is one little slow.
They won the elephant.
Oh, WhoDaBest is going to fall. That's 3 victims already. And without the, like they did Pyromancer with Circle Protection, with the Belt of Frenzy. So a lot of their cooldowns were already used, but they still found the pick onto not only Ducky, but Lawbster was coming to kind of help him with the Kraken, and he fell like 2 seconds later.
And with that, now the pressure on mid lane is available for Obey. Gold Fury's due up in another 50 seconds time. Funballer going to make sure Xaliea can't get a free Tier 1 tower on this right-hand side. But Xaliea already level 19 in this game to Funballer's 16. Funballer's just off the pace this game compared to even his lane opponent in Ataraxia.
That's very true here. It's because of the start that he got off to. Going for the Warlock staff, you just don't have the same kind of sustain, whereas Soul is going to be relying on her first ability, going to be getting some lifesteal from that Bancroft's talent, and she put herself in a great position to succeed with the Hunter's Blessing. That's more early game focused, and that's what helped Ataraxia get that edge.
Is that a Gem of ISO coming out from Prime now?
It very well could be, unless it's an E-Staff.
E-Staff.
Extra burst damage.
We'll see how that way, especially with a Soul Reaver too. E-Staff and Soul Reaver.
With Soul Gem, yeah, it's just going to amplify those Spirit Balls even further. And a lot of Giannis's will also go for this build, so seeing it on Isis just goes to show that you can realistically go for it on any god or goddess that has really short cooldowns.
Well, maybe being respectful here. They didn't try and invest in the Fire Giant. They're going to turn their attention back towards the Gold Fury side, and that's where SK's position now. Twig rotating over here. Is iRaffer going to take a little bit of damage? Not too much to write home about, though. He's on a Geb support after all. He'll be fine, but keep an eye on Sobek, who will be looking for plucks. Didn't find one there, and now he's in a bit of a tricky spot.
Well, not too tricky, because he's going to tail whip Ducky in place here. iRaffer's the one that's going to get stunned out. Poked ever so slightly. Got poked out earlier on, so that was the combination of 2 sets of abilities.
Well, let's see what Obey can do here. They're going to pull the Gold Fury a couple of times. Pluck goes in. Beach used by Lawbster. Spirit Ball did connect, but PrettyPriMe was fully invested on by Faeles. Great play from him. Ducky gets credit for the kill. Kraken only really hits onto Xaliea, who can walk away from the damage amplification. And now the ultimate of Ataraxia to try and create some distance helps as CaptainTwig cleans up the monkey in the back line.
It's a 1-for-1 thus far. In the back is CaptainTwig. It's a 2-for-1 for his team, juking out those time stops. So important, but Ataraxia clipping the wall with a stellar burst.
Twig still going in, surrounded by 3. iRaffer here to support. Ataraxia retreats, however, to the Gold Fury to start that one up. Xaliea teleporting in means that Funballer is the only one really around. Has his rewind available as Twig going to engage.
Oh, CaptainTwig blinks on top of Funballer's basic attack, stripping away that red buff. Rewind is available, but he's not even going to invest into it because of all that movement speed. Funballer with Winged Blade and Accelerate too quick.
Not just that, the Talaria barrier boots, which is one thing we didn't touch on, or traveler's shoes for you guys at home. They give you the extra mobility that you don't get from other boots. 25% is a lot of mobility, Tony.
It's very true, and even with speed buff for CaptainTwig that just now fades away, it's almost not even worth chasing the Chronos, especially when the team fight just faded away and you got a lot of reviving members you have to take account for.
SK really needs to try and get their farming boots on, and the problem is Obey are not going to give them much of a chance, because if they do, they will look towards the neutral objective. Specifically now, Fire Giant is really the call that Obey could be looking for here. SK not been able to find their way into this game, totally, it feels like. Faeles has tried to make a couple of things happen, but he's just not found a rhythm for this team.
He was only able to really find CaptainTwig whenever he was invading those back camps, but once team fights started rolling around, Obey's draft was just superior. We talk about the defensive options they have, and SK Gaming's damage just does not outweigh the defenses from Obey.
I will say as well, you know, I was talking about Ganesha having a really high win ratio. It's probably going to fall in this game. There's also another one in there as well. Batz is at an 83% win ratio. I don't see it happening in this game either.
That's why it's important to see who is the one picking these guys.
You're right.
And probably going to go down to, with 8 picks, it's like about 12.5% per pick. So going to drop down to about 70, low 70, high 60s.
We'll see what happens mid lane, though. CaptainTwig a little bit caught out of position, being invested on by Ganesh and Funballer. But the rotation from Obey is on its way, and the elephant's in trouble. Or should I say, it's poor old Ducky in the mid lane who was trying to support his front line. Ducky tries to ult away, but he will not live to fight another day. Now, immediately after that, Obey will rotate straight back towards the Fire Giant.
That's just Achilles in a nutshell. Even when you use the ultimate there, you know, you're going to take that 10% extra damage. So yes, it does provide you that gap closer that you need, but at what cost?
Your life. In that instance, that's for sure. Second protection down, and pop goes the Fire Giant. That was a lot of health that was taken away from that with that circle of protection pop. Those buffs to Isis. Pros are starting to realize she's starting to get up there in terms of viability.
It definitely helps when you have so much extra boosted damage, though, coming from that Belt of Frenzy. iRaffer definitely building around the team there. And more importantly, was the change up that he did in his build. The Gauntlet of Thebes is something that he really delayed at the beginning of Season 5, picking it up either 4th, 5th, or even sometimes like 6th, really deep in his selection. But this time around, he just straight up rushed it, even before Boots, I think.
Yeah, he did. And one thing about the builds for supports now is they're kind of varied. You see Thebes rushes, Boots rushes. Sometimes you forego the Sovereignty and Heartwood, which I've seen a couple of times. Trixang did it earlier today on the Ares, surprisingly enough, which is something that shows that support do have a little bit of a variability, more so than previous seasons.
It just depends on what your goals are as a support. Are you going to be fighting more with the team? If so, then yes, aura items are definitely very useful. But if you're fighting in small skirmishes, 2-on-2s, 3-on-3s, you're peeling in for your backline, then the auras might not necessarily be providing the most bang for your buck. So going for some selfish items like Spirit's Robe wouldn't necessarily be a bad idea.
Well, Twig might be one of the dying in the region, but he's also top of the gold here at the moment by a substantial amount, about 400 gold. And 5, 2, and 7 with full pen build. Going to cause a couple of problems for SK. They need to keep an eye on where he is at all times. At the moment, it's on the tier 2 and right. But Obey aggressive in mid, and SK a hit.
They're trying to find that Fear No Evil, but he's getting disrupted and displaced. The ultimate from WhoDaBest was expended, but everyone else from SK Gaming very patient. That blink, though.
I like this call, though, totally. As soon as they realize, all right, we failed to engage, give up the tier 2. They've got Fire Giant. We don't have the Ganesha. We didn't get a pick. We're just going to have to hope for a Phoenix defense.
They can still defend here. They do have Kraken and Fear No Evil.
That's a nice combo.
Great cooldowns to be able to find the AoE.
There's a Frenzy, there's a Blink, there's a Cataclysm. Only really hitting Ganesh as Ducky engaged the backline. Faeles disappears to the magical wonder of CaptainTwig. Ducky could be soon to follow suit as he falls down to Ataraxia. But who was the other one? Lawbster? I didn't even see him.
Yeah, Lawbster just dies within seconds of a lot of these engagements here. And SK Gaming, they are trying to defend 2v5. And this Titan is melting, Hindu.
Well, let's see if they can take it down. They're going to take down the Elephant one more time, and that just leaves little old Funballer. He can't stop this. 27 minutes in. That was relatively clean from Obey. That was Season 4 Obey.
Definitely. They learned a lot from last week. Heading into week number 4, this is the second half of the SPL, and Obey Alliance are one of these teams where we always consider to be the top elite team, But right now, the way the European standings are kind of shifting out, it's been all Rival, Dignitas, and Energy. You know, they are kind of like in the bottom / middle part of the pack, where they're just like, hey guys, we still exist.
Yeah, they feel like about 4th seeded right now, do Obey. They look good in that game against SK, though. Cleaned up a lot of the issues they had last week against SK. Clearly, they didn't give away the Giannis. But who do you guys think deserves MVP for that one? Twig the Undying and Twig the Killer.
I think Ataraxia actually did a lot of damage in those engagements. A lot of creativity coming out of iRaffer with the Belt of Frenzy, setting up CaptainTwig, I think, or also PrettyPriMe, but I think it was just a collective effort from Obey Alliance.
Well, it's time to head back to the Goof Troop on the desk to break down Game 1.
Thanks a lot, boys. And this one, yeah, SK didn't seem to really be able to bottle what they brought last time against Obey, and Obey cleaned things up rather easily.
That's the thing, though, is I don't think it's necessarily that SK wasn't able to do what they were able to do last week. It's more that Obey didn't allow them to do what they did last week. Obey just looked like we expected Obey to look like at the beginning of this year. They came out, they were aggressive, they just outplayed their opposition, and when it's a matchup like this, that's what I think a lot of fans expect from them.
Absolutely. iRaffer has been, again, and it's not necessarily, it's interesting, it's not necessarily iRaffer that's been struggling. It's basically just the entire team around iRaffer, whether he's involved or not. Because when we watched iRaffer play versus Energy, a lot of what he brought was sort of, he'd get himself in trouble, and then all of a sudden his team would go ahead and help out. Well, it takes a little while to really get all the gears and cogs working on the same sort of scenario. So iRaffer and his team are finally able to step up, and just like we asked in the pregame, PrettyPriMe has got to do it.
And I love this Isis play. I'm always a fan of seeing Isis at the SPL level, but Prime played it so well. The control that he was able to bring, the objective control, the control on the enemy gods, he did it all.
One of the interesting things that I really liked about it as well was, I don't know if we got a chance to see during the broadcast, I was in and out, but he was actually leveling his abilities, his Spirit Ball and his Wing Gust. He was showing love to both of them, sort of alternating points in and points out, understanding that this character is really widely a combo-based character.
You need both to be ready to go, but still got to, be able to level that circle of protection as needed because of how much it can do for you. But he was just on point. As soon as Isis is able to finish off the 2 and the 1, that's when her strongest point of the game really begins right now. It's no longer that levels 1 through 4 where she's clearing the wave super early on. That's not really the case with her anymore. It's that mid-game where Prime can really become that big objective burner and damage dealer at the same time, and he hit his power spike perfectly.
We got to